Hi, folks. This is Dr. Kat Schreier. Welcome back to the Water Show, where we bring you some of the best water citizens, people who are passionate about water and doing amazing things, like the fantastic Leonhard, our guest today, and what he's doing with his WaterVent event, which has gone virtual, like the rest of us during the last couple of years during COVID. And we've got a really exciting program set up today. So please join me in welcoming to the Water Show, Leonhard. Welcome, Wolf. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
And
my best regards from beautiful Germany, Berlin.
Berlin, Germany. Yes.
Yeah.
It's, one of the cool things that I think people have really come to appreciate with COVID is that we can have these great conversations and build great relationships with people all over the world. And that's really what your work has been all about with WaterVent. Tell us a little bit. What is WaterVent? Tell us about.
Well, WaterVent is kind of artificial word, an acronymic for water venture, WaterVent. I'm in the event business, matching investors and startups since 25 years. And in 2010, somehow I discovered that the water sector is still somehow a neglected or abandoned sector for venture capital, for startups, etc. So there are a lot at this times already. So we initiated our very first WaterVent in 2010 in Berlin, together with the Berliner Wasserbetriebe. This is our local Berlin water utility. And then we moved on to diverse locations, including Switzerland, London. We were to Dubai, we were to Philadelphia, New York City. So up to now, we had done approximately 14 physical events and somehow 10 virtual due to the various circumstances.
Yes. We're going to talk about the switch to virtual in a minute, but give us kind of a picture, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up for folks the you can actually see at watervent.com the site. So let me share that and just kind of walk us through what happens at a WaterVent event.
Well, pretty simply, like you folks now know it from general venture capital matching events, we do focus on water tech startups. We had no particular water technology in focus. We welcome the entire value chain, including neighboring sectors. Neighboring sectors means, therefore, we're doing funding in the water nexus. That means we do welcome technologies like, of course, AG, indoor farming, roof gardening, aquaculture, aquaponics, algae business, etc., which are dependent on the availability of water. So because the audience is the same, stays the same. There are only a very few water-only investors. The majority of VC investors, if we talk about VCs, coming from the general clean tech sectors, that means they are investing in energy, new material, food, AG, and water. But in the meantime, this sector in venture capital has split up. There are specialists in food and AG. There's some specialists, as indicated, in water. There's some in energy, etc. But you have to watch out of the water nexus, the independency between the different sectors, because many stuff can only happen when you have water.
This is really, you and I came from the same sort of background. I mean, my background was as a water planner, but as when we're doing watershed plans or planning for new technology or addressing some endangered species or some big picture issue, we got to bring everyone together. And there was sort of that perception of water as being just pipes and pumps, right? And just taps and toilets, right? And just like the things that people see. But as you dig into the bigger picture things like climate, like resiliency, like sustainability, you can't have energy without water. You can't
That's it.
have food without water. You cannot, protect your communities from natural disasters without thinking about floods or the connection between droughts and fires. I mean,
Yeah.
all of this is really linked together. And water just, they weren't good communicators. This is part of why we focus on teaching water leaders how to be great communicators.
I guess this is one of the reasons, Kat, that water technology or water as material as such was so long regarded as a banal commodity, and people didn't pay attention to it. So water is still too cheap in my eyes. And nowadays, all the technology solutions that are developed try to give a remedy to those damages which human beings are doing to their water resources, like the contamination of ponds, lakes, rivers, etc. And they cut off their trees and forests and are surprised that the water supply is decreasing. This is stupidity.
Well, and the thing is, the people who work in this space, we're problem solvers. That's what we do. We see problems and we say, there's got to be a solution. Let's figure that out. And that's a very entrepreneurial approach, even though most of the people in our industry actually work for large organizations rather than going off on their own, which is, a whole new set of risk of actually creating your own company. But just that idea that, we can come up with solutions. And so there are companies that have been coming up with solutions, and often they need support to do that. That's why having that marriage between the startups and the people who fund them, provide business advice, that's really that ecosystem of support around the startup of finding these solutions to these really, world-changing problems, right?
That's right. If you see where the major innovations are coming from, this is, of course, US, is Canada, Israel, for being the top states of sources of innovations. And then maybe my country, Switzerland, Austria, including UK, Scandinavia, and a bit coming from India and South Africa, that's it. And the other areas, I often proclaim them as being water ignorant areas, because they're just using their water resources, they're just contaminating it, ignoring it, the quality, and then they're surprised there's no water flow anymore. And so often technology may only cure the superficial evidence of water problems, because technology can be only applied if there are professional technicals can install it. But on the other hand, many water programs are caused by misbehavior and just ignorance.
And this is part of what makes working in the water space so interesting. It's not just about the widget or gadget. You don't just make something and say, here, use this will solve all your problems. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night because you couldn't figure out how to slice a tomato? This is not something that you can do in a TV commercial. But often when people are buying new products, new technologies, they're also buying the expertise that goes with it. Knowing that you've got a team that really knows something about water, really knows something about science, about engineering, who's worked on various water problems, brings that expertise. So when somebody presents at one of these events, that's part of what a pitch is about, is you're presenting not just how good your technology is, like some of these Shark Tank widgets and gadgets are pretty simple, but we've got people who have decades of experience. It's not just the young kids out of an MBA school, right? They really got a lot to offer, and often they might be in isolated places, they might not be close to an incubator, and so this is an opportunity for them to get in front of the investors, the advisors, the incubators, the folks who can really help them to grow their solutions.
That's right. So when we have anybody, can I imagine we have the entire community reaching out from university, just to quote once, Columbia or MIT, water-related activities with their brilliant, outstanding or Bro in Milwaukee, or Mikkerod in Israel, or Witsos in the Netherlands. We have them all with us, and these are all, initiative to help out water technology startups to get funding and to convince some potential clients, which is in this conservative sector very, very important, to convince the very first clients to apply the technology, because especially water utilities, they tend to be very conservative in their purchasing behavior.
Where has this been done before? Who else is doing it? What are their experiences? It's the race for second, right?
Yes. Yes.
And although there are a few that want to be those innovators, and especially if they can do it as a group. If you have a pilot test and you say, you know, we're looking for a half dozen utilities to all try it together, you're much more comfortable if they know that there's a group of people, you know, group of utilities that are all trying it, so you can compare different.
There are initiatives like you mentioned, like iUtilities or the Water Environment Foundation US, which are associations of, say, innovation-minded, open-minded utilities who dare to try out new technologies.
Yes, yes, yes. And the whole concept of the utility of the future. This has been something, folks, that's been really big in the U.S. You know, the American Water Works Association, the Water Environment Federation, National Association of Clean Water Agencies, and the American Metropolitan Water Agencies, all the whole alphabet soup. But really, all these utilities are saying, you know, what is our vision for what a utility is? What is the role of the utility as a pillar within the community, as someone who's really, you know, at the vanguard of you know, not just new technologies, but also addressing larger societal issues, revitalizing economically disadvantaged neighborhoods, of encouraging greater diversity, of you know, addressing you know, environmental equity, environmental racism issues. You know, that these are things that can be all built in, and this is actually something that, you know, we talk about the startups trying to communicate with the investors and the first clients, but that's also something that's got to be communicated the other way, is for the startups themselves to really understand what their clients are dealing with, that these are clients that are not just making decisions based on price point or whether the technology works, but also how can they serve their community. So you've got to be able to convey, you know, not just say, oh, water is important, buy my stuff. You know, water is life, buy my stuff. It's got to be, you know, we understand that this technology is particularly going to help these sorts of communities that are facing these sorts of problems, that we've been able to prove it, you know, that it works. Let us work with you to help you serve your community. So let's talk about and you know, and I want to show just one last time. I've been flashing it up here, but and by the way, all the times here are in Central European time, so got to add.
So it's a cozy times for Americans,
right?
Which
So
anyway are the major part of my audience.
Yes. So it's 5 o'clock Central European is 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific.
So it's sorry guys, in San Francisco we have to get up early, but
it's not that.
I guess it's convenient.
It's okay. Yeah, I think you picked a good time then. This is something, as you know, I worked in the virtual space for a long time, trying to figure out how to take what virtual, you know, coaches and event planners and educators and transition that to the water space. And this is a time frame that is probably, in fact, I just talked to the folks who did the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within. You know, it's one of the biggest event guys out there, the Tony Robbins events, and they turned to the event virtual, the stage events folks, and they said that this is actually the #1 best show up rate. And one of the cool things about doing virtual events is you can test everything. You can, you know, say, what if we start at 11? What if we start at 8? Whatever, you know. This is the best time to get started. So folks, definitely put this on your calendar. And if you want to just attend and you want to just check it out, and by the way, this is The schedule I'm showing here is for the 29th. That's coming up.
29th on 24th. It's very long written. 24th WaterVent session.
Right, 24th ever.
We do run it via Zoom.
September,
You can sign up in Zoom.
Yes.
It's practically free for everybody. The only exception are the pitchers, whom are going to be charged with 450 euro, which is a fair deal anyhow. And thanks to my sponsors, which enable me the other way to have this event free of charge for the majority of you.
Yeah, and this is really, I mean, these sponsors, and we do our part of the promotional sponsor, I guess, is really helping to get the word out, because we believe in what WaterVent is doing. But these sponsors, a lot of them are in the finance space, a lot of them are in
finance space, they're corporates, they're legal advisors, they're general advisors, they're networks, etc., etc. Bentley, technology provider, Blue Impact as an investor. So we have a pretty variety of everybody involved in the space, because if they detect something interesting, they activate their own network in the background. So even though they're not an investor, they know investors, because people in this community, they all know each other.
Yes, it is definitely it's a small community. They all know each other. And what I love about the way you've structured this event is, it really does blend in, as you can see here. So this innovators pitch is here, and Alpha's actually getting his program together of who's going to go in what panel. But every few panels, we have a panel of pitches. So every pitch is about 5 minutes, and all the speakers themselves are about 5 minutes. So you've got, you get to, it's not just a link and a logo for the sponsors. You actually get on the podium. You actually get to talk about how, they're not just thought leaders, right? And we've been talking with a lot of event sponsors, and it's like, we don't want to just be a link and a logo. We don't want to just be a booth out in the expo. We want to be seen as thought leaders, and really keeping tabs on the future and helping to share what we see as the future of the industry, and what their part is. There's tech startups, there's incubator programs. So these incubator,
we have incubators, we have investors, we have corporates. So even though not all of them are going to appear, I have to admit we are talking to human beings, but nevertheless, everybody of the participants will receive an entire participant list. So of the speakers, of the startups presenting, and those who are signing in Zoom. So you have a complete list to go after. Even if you miss somebody, you can go after, including his personal email. There were no complaints until now, because they're all there to connect, no?
Well, and that's the whole point, right? And this is something that we've seen, and let's talk about the virtual events now, because Water Citizen actually came out of the fact that, as a water planner, as someone who was in the business of bringing people together around big water problems, where we need to get a lot of stakeholders together, multi-criterion decision analysis, blah, blah, blah. One of the first things we had to do is figure out who the key players are and get them all together in a room, right? And how to do it in a way that we, made sure that we, gave people a little background on the issues, the technologies, the laws, the programs, whatever, heard from people, and then worked towards creating a solution, but really built community, right? You want to build connection and community. You want to make things fun and engaging, and Elf does get things. It is fun to be able to come to these events. They're fast moving. You get to hear some really cool stuff that's going on. But when COVID first hit, I reached out to a lot of organizations, and I said, look, if any of you need help going virtual, let me know, because I started doing my first virtual event was 2008. I was doing an event for National Academy of Sciences, and we were traveling all over the place, inviting people to DC for this big forum on the findings of a report we'd done. And we had some folks out in California that said, it's going to cost us more. This was before free live streaming, before Zoom. It was going to cost $10,000 to set up a live stream on top of the AV from the hotel. So these guys out in California said, it's going to cost us more to fly out there, miss work, pay for hotels. Then we'll just give you $10,000, set up a live stream. And so suddenly, and we were starting at 8 a.m. At least, for this event, it starts at 8 a.m. on the West Coast. We were starting at 8 a.m. on the East Coast. So the West Coast folks, they were getting up at 5 a.m. The consultants were serving coffee and bagels and donuts and stuff, and so they could watch this closed live stream. And but I was looking at the camera, I was taking questions. I let other people know. We had people all over the country who no way, no how would have been able to be a part of it. And this is really starts like, who are we missing when we keep having everything based on who can actually afford to get in the room, who can, or pay someone else to be in the room on their behalf? How can we get greater diversity? So we really started from that perspective. And how do we make live events as fun and engaging as an in-person event? It's not the same, obviously, but there's so much you can do. So,
well, the goal is to detect or to showcast innovations. And if you are interested in an innovation you're listening to pitch, you take up contact with these guys anyhow. So the basic goal is fulfilled. What is missing, of course, is the cocktail reception afterwards, mingling around. But take it serious, it's okay. The human factor is missing, but on the other hand, you get a lineup of innovators, and you can take up contact with them afterwards, and then agree on a meeting face to face if you want. If it pays
have
off.
that opportunity to get, and this is that 360 experience that we talk about. It's not just about the presentation itself. It's not just about knowing how to work Zoom, right? It's about knowing how to set up your structure so that you're engaging. It's knowing how to reach out to people beforehand, how to promote your presentation to get people in the room, and how to have some kind of built-in follow-up afterwards. That's what we call this 360 virtual event experience for water leaders. And when I put out the call when COVID first hit, I said, put some time on the calendar. I'll give you some free time to talk about this. I think it was 20 minutes. So all the signs up, we ended up talking for about 2 hours. And at the time you had already talked to me about being one of your presenters, right? That I would have been one of those thought leader presenters up in Connecticut. So walk us through what happened in March. And so we had been talking about my coming out in April was your event, right?
Yeah.
So what happened when we had, we talked about how do we switch this over to a virtual event, right?
Well, it was amazingly easily and extremely well accepted. Yeah. So because everybody knows about the circumstances and everybody accepted it. So the outcome was I always have some 100 plus registrants via Zoom with me. The only critical issue is that it's a discipline of following their own registrations is a bit mediocre. Let's put it this way, very carefully. But nevertheless, I have the personal data, I have the personal email, and I put it in the list and everybody gets it. So it really does not matter if those folks all are listening right with the presentation. You get the list afterwards and they can follow up. And they all have their profiles in LinkedIn. They can testify or whatever. You can certify whether these are the right guys to talk to. And that's it. That's the whole entire story.
And this is where, this often comes on the host. And one of the things that I saw, and we watched all these events, we from Water Says Media, we go and show up and cover the events and really highlight some of the top issues. And we kept seeing the big organizations focus on these kind of video game looking platforms where you have your little avatar walking from the main room to the little exhibit room and everything. But then, even with the picture in the background, it's really just a box with a Zoom call in the middle of it, or a pre-recorded webinar that it really is on the host and the host working with the speakers to help them to show up as well as possible. And I think, that is something that you guys have done a really nice job with, because I have had the pleasure, the opportunity to present for Water Citizen, Virtual Water Education Lab at these events. What do you do with your speakers to make sure that they can show up as well as possible?
Well, the discipline with the speakers is quite good, and well, they're doing just a short statement, and they stay in the background and listen to the presentation of the startup. So, literally said, if I didn't have any participant from outside, the mixture between the quality of speakers I have and the startups are already sufficient for the startups and the speakers, because the speakers have all particular interests in startups and technology innovations and vice versa.
Yeah.
So the
I was at the you had like the week before the event, you had like a little get together on a Sunday.
Yeah,
right?
we agreed to meet and make sure that people are just there and get some discipline, because the dangerous stuff with virtual events is that people simply forget about. I can write memo emails, I can get them the access via Zoom, they get the Zoom mail, etc., etc. But finally, I'm just testing out the day before or 2 days before. Hey, is everybody there? Everybody be prepared, etc., etc. So, and it's a nice opportunity for startups acquainting with my speakers in a more informal, personal way. It's a meeting set up, so everybody sees everybody. It's not a webinar setup, it's a meeting. You get all my monitor filled up with little pics of speakers and innovators. So this brings some fun and gets them to run. If somebody is a bit nervous and anxious about his pitch, reducing the nervosity and getting them rid of and be feeling well prepared to do the pitch,
Yeah, and I think it was really helpful, and I watched some of the practice pitches that people did, and to know, don't do a glitzy, pre-packaged marketing video or something. That you really want to make it more of how a startup pitches to investors. That you provide the right information, you give them the overview, you have that opportunity for people to hear from you. And there has been follow-up. Can you give us an example of where some of these virtual events have actually led to people from all over the world connecting with each other?
Well, there are various examples, and for example, a Portuguese startup just pitched, and they met 2 potential investors from Israel and New York. So, and this works really smoothly and quickly and informally. Though they did not meet personally, it's virtual, but they liked each other, and so there's still enough opportunities to comply with even online events. And my experience is a physical event is not automatically more efficient than a virtual one. No, not at all. If you feel bored with the pitch, you are polite, you are educated, you will keep sitting in the room. You don't stand up and leave the room, okay?
Right.
But it does not lead automatically to more leads and more interested parties automatically. If people are interested, they take up contact with you. Even with the speakers.
Ulf has a great list, great relationship. He knows how to find these people, and I want to say that, I mean, this whole thing was really a labor of love, and it was not you all by yourself that put in the love of creating.
No. You see the background painting of my wife, who unfortunately deceased 3 months ago, and who was always with me, supporting us in our firms. That she in our selling tour. My wife died of cancer, pancreas cancer, in June, and this is for her. I'm doing it. I'm continuing it, and she did always fulfill a nice job doing the check-in, name tags, and all this tedious stuff I didn't want to do. And I did the moderation, and we were a dream team, also in the eyes of our American clients. So, so I'm continuing in it, and this is the reason, Kat. One of the reasons I'm actually looking for a global strategic partner and buyer for WaterVent brand.
Yes.
It could be a corporate, it could be a foundation, it could be a civil engineer, it could be a fund, or people are thinking of setting up a new fund, labeling it WaterVent, using the benefit of, we are extremely well known and acknowledged in the global water sector. I'm actually connected via LinkedIn and other tools, I guess, to all major and most relevant protagonists of the sector, from corporates, technology provider, incubators, investors, foundations, universities, etc. So also a nice opportunity for consultings, for civil engineering, who want to step in more in the consulting business, using the awareness and the credibility of WaterVent brand to explore this business. Nothing to do with events. Actually, it's connotated with events, okay? But this is not an obligatory connection. Use WaterVent as a platform, of a permanent scouting platform for innovations in water globally. Pick some of them for your personal portfolio, and the rest is pure marketing for your corporate, saying, hey, we are helping startups to life, to be applied somewhere. We are helping them. So that I'm looking for this kind of partner. I'm prepared to maintain my assistance for a period we have to fix, at least 1 year. But I want to see my WaterVent, our WaterVent brand, speaking in the sense of my wife and me, being handled by a serious and professional partner, whomever it could be, from wherever it could be, because water is a future business, it's a future topic, one of the most relevant ever one can consider.
Absolutely. You know, I wanna share something really quickly, because I want to emphasize, folks, this is really an incredible opportunity. And you know, in growing Water Citizen, I've worked with a lot of the folks in the online business space, and you know, what this is a rough, you know, kind of overview from Amana Guy, one of the mentors that I've worked with. If you have a knowledge-based business, if you're, you know, coaching, consulting, you know, working, you know, trying to get out your expertise online, having an event that's dark green, you know, that is really, it is such a critical piece for people who want to scale their expertise. You know, to go from having one client at a time, you know, one contract at a time, if you're a big firm, to really positioning yourself in the space, you know, attracting the right people, and then having an event like this. So you've got those first few steps are already taken care of in many ways. You really already built a name, a reputation, relationships. You've got people who are going to show up and talk about, you know, the latest of what's going on in their part of the world, and their part of expertise related to water innovations, and that they're going to show up, you know. So whoever steps up and takes advantage of this opportunity to carry this vision that Ulf and Gabby had for this organization, and really carry it forward and take it to the level that it can get to, you've got a wonderful opportunity here. So if you think that you want to really be a player in the water startup space, definitely come on the 29th. Check it out. Go to watervent.com. Check it out. Email Ulf. I was going to read off the ULF at LeonHard@LeoVen.com, or if it's easier, just go to the website. You can reach out his email, but reach out to Ulf. Check out the site. if you have a startup yourself, I think you've got like 2 spots left in the program. Get it in there now. If you're already, an established startup, not just a kind of, conceptual, but if you've got something going and you're ready to go to the next level, get in touch with Ulf. If you're a speaker, if you're a player, if you're an advisor, these companies like, Voqua and Xylem that have become sort of the exit strategy, these big tech firms that are buying up all the little startups, the investors, the management consultants. These are firms you're looking for the people who show up at Ulf's events, and it may be a fantastic fit to have the opportunity to say, our consulting firm presents, the Leonhard, the WaterVent event, and this is a really fantastic opportunity. So we at Water Citizen, we are committed to creating and supporting virtual water leadership, and that includes innovations and startups. It's one of the reasons we feel so passionate about supporting the work that Ulf has done with WaterVent. Anything that you guys, if you want to be in this space, please reach out to Ulf. Please check out the event on the 29th. Ulf, do you have any final thoughts before we go?
Well, any final thoughts? Be always aware that we're not talking about water, we're talking about the water nexus. So the nexus to forest, to AG, to aquaculture, aquaponic, algae, all these relevant sectors which are able to persist only based on the availability of water. So maybe a big food corporate is interested, or maybe even a mature startup is interested in taking WaterVent as a marketing tool and helping simultaneously some startup peers to get some ground. It's always it's a nice marketing tool to be applied globally in the sector, because our network is globally as far as concerns the major regions which are water tech relevant, I put it this way. Thank you.
The cool thing about online marketing and sort of what's called education-based marketing is it's not about blasting eyeballs. And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people, especially in the water space and the big technology space and the big corporations, is they kind of, all these STEM types, they hire these communications people who do mass communication. It's not mass communication. It is building relationships one person at a time. Every single person who's watching us online, they're able to see it like they're here in the room with us. So, you have these relationships available. You have a great event available. So if you're interested in building relationships and bringing together, creating an event that allows those relationships to be created from all over the world to bring out the best of water innovations, check out watervent.com, get in touch with Ulf, and I'm excited to see what comes of the future of WaterVent as it joins with this new partner, with Ulf's guidance and a nice smooth handoff. And Ulf, it is always a pleasure to have a chance to have a conversation with you.
The pleasure is mine.
Thank you so much. Thanks, folks. Dr. Kat Schreier, The Water Show, watercitizen.org. Ulf Leonhard, our guest. Thanks for being here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kat.